Initiating system 1. System 1 loaded.
That's what I do when I'm bored. Yeah! That's your cue to clap. You got it. All right. So since it's right after lunch, I wanted to do something that most of you probably won't like. Stand up. And I'm out. You're out? All right. When I say 3, I want you to yell in your native language, I love Copenhagen. No. I love Copenhagen Developers Festival. Ready? No? 1, 2, 3. You didn't put your hands up. All right. Do it again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, whatever you said, that's right. All right, now that we've shaken off the lunchtime Asian stuff, right? I'm David McCarter. Welcome to Rock Your Code, Code and App Performance for Microsoft.NET. And I'm really excited to do this here for the first time because I'm going to show you all the differences between performance of .NET 6 and 8, okay? And this is the first time I'm really talking about it in public. I've been saving this up for months, and you guys will be the first ones to see it. And I'm even amazed about some of the things I'm seeing at .NET 8. .NET 8 has dramatically sped up in most areas. I'll show you at the very end what hasn't, but I'll show you all the stuff that has. Well, not all the stuff, but as much as I can cram into an hour. All right, I'm David McCarter. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I've been doing .NET before it even was released. I'm also a C# Corner MVP, featured writer, architect, code quality, whatever. There's all my handles. That'll be at the end, too, if you didn't grab it at the beginning, if you want to contact me later. All right? This talk is based off of that book called Rock Your Code, Code and App Performance for Microsoft.NET, just like this talk, okay? So if you didn't hear everything today, you can get the book. I also have 2 other books out, a Coding Standards book, and also one I released 2 months ago, which is Surviving the Technical Interview. So if you're looking for a job, you need that book, okay? Because I'll tell you why, because you all suck at interviewing. So that's why the book is there, all right? All right. I'm a little nervous for some reason. Maybe it's my, how many people actually live in Denmark? Wow, awesome. I've been here since Sunday, and I really like this place. Yeah. All right, so today we're going to talk about why we're here, then some general tips really quick just to get you started in some of the practices I do. Then we'll talk about some of the big things, strings and collections, and then source generators. How many have played with source generators yet? A few? Okay. And then we're out of here and beer time. No, it's not 5, is it? Sorry. It's 5 o'clock somewhere? Yeah. All right. I did photography for her a few years back. Awesome, awesome guitarist. All right. So the goal of this session is to quickly get some performance increases in your code as soon as you go home on Monday or tomorrow or whatever, okay? There was a workshop here for 2 days that really drilled down for your specific problems on eking out that last little performance. But this is going to be more top level, and I'll tell you why in a second. Because these are basically the exact same things I do every company I go work at. Because they all suffer from memory problems and performance problems, every single project I'm hired onto, okay? And so these are all those things that I've been finding for many, many, many years that people keep doing wrong, and I don't know why. So, code performance is really, really important for everything these days, but especially for cloud, because, we all know that we get charged how long that code is executing, right? So if you can cut it by half, that's half your cost, right? And companies, like Facebook, hire people right out of college for $250K US dollars a month just to eke out $1 million worth of performance, because it's worth it to them, okay? So I'm not going to teach you how to eke out $1 million worth, but enough to get your apps a lot better. And both are very important for now and the future. A lot of things people don't think about is the future, right? And if you code stuff right in the beginning, then things will be a lot easier to change. And memory affects performance, and performance affects memory. So I have a whole separate talk about memory that I'm not doing here. But if you go Google it or Bing it or whatever, you'll be able to find it. Because they both go hand in hand, and really when I go into a brand new project, the Asian food's coming out of my mouth, sorry. When I go to a brand new project, the first thing I do is fix all their memory problems, because every 100% of the projects I work on have memory issues. And I'm not talking about old guy memory issues, I'm talking about code memory issues. So the way I got really interested in this is a company not far from where I live hired me because they only had 2 super busy traffic days a year. The rest of the year is pretty flat. And their biggest traffic days were Black Friday in America, which is the day after our Thanksgiving, right? And then Cyber Monday, which is the Monday after that, okay? And that's when they were spiking to 20,000 transactions per second average, and spikes to 50,000 transactions per second. Only those 2 days. The rest of the year was pretty flat. Okay, and we had one customer who was Nike, and talk to me afterwards why they did this, but they put the entire Nike catalog in memory, 200 gigs, which took 2 hours to reboot that machine. Yeah, don't get me started on why they chose to do that, but they did. But one of the things that I did there was not only did I get them through Black Friday and Cyber Monday with no problems, which they were having every single year before me, but I was allowing them to start moving their stuff to the cloud, because 200 gigabytes of memory is not going to move to the cloud, right? So that's why they hired me, and I was successful in that company. All right. So code performance. Here's just a quick, easy tips. These are things I always look at when I'm looking at projects and files to make sure things are cleaned up. I like to keep things nice and clean and organized. The first thing is remove all the usings at the top of your code files, right? And I'll tell you why in a second. But you need to remove those because that can actually, hurt performance, okay? And the second thing you need to do after you do that, I think it's Control KD or something like that, cleans them up if you want to do the switch. But I usually just use CodeRush because when I save the file, CodeRush will clean it up all for me, and I don't have to worry about it. And then the next thing you need to do right after that is to get rid of all the references in your projects you're not using anymore, right? And inevitably, there's going to be some, especially when during development you're going to add things, you're going to forget to remove it, you're going to add things, forget to remove it, and pretty soon you have a big bloated, deployment, and you don't really need it, okay? So first, clean up all your usings, and then clean up all your references, okay? And you'll be a much better, for at least the way that goes, and that's the way that screen looks like. Oops, sorry. So one thing in all my sessions is everything you're about to see is real. I don't make this stuff up because I don't code like this anymore. And all of this is real from past projects I've been on. I've changed it a little bit so I don't get in trouble, sued. I still see people doing this, right? They're initializing variables to their default state. Stop it, okay? You're hurting your performance. Not a huge, but it adds up when you're doing 50,000 transactions per second, right? So stop doing that. I don't know why people do that. Because that's the default state of those two types, right? The default of an integer is 0, the default of a reference type is null, okay? So stop doing that. Only set it to something different if it's not the default, okay? And again, I'm not gonna show you the performance stuff on this because it's not a lot, but it does add up, okay? So make sure you go through your code. There's actually code editor stuff, editor config settings you can do to help you prevent that. I'll give you those at the end. All right. So let's talk about the first big thing, strings, right? Strings is always a memory issue most of the time, especially if you don't do it right. Because why? Why is strings a problem? Immutable, right. So even though you're concatenating two strings, you're hurting performance when you're doing that. So detecting empty strings. This is one thing that most UI should do, especially when any value coming from the user is probably wrong, right? So the first thing we do is we check to make sure there's actually something in the string, because if we call any methods after that, it's going to blow up on us, right? And I still see people doing this, right? This is like .NET 1 kind of coding, right? Cut it out. Don't do that. What you really should be doing is using is null or empty, or is null or white space if you really need that. That's a lot less performant. Okay? How many people do that? Good. Some hands are down. I'll slap you later. So make sure you always do that. I'm going to show you the performance, which has changed a lot between 6 and 8. So you can actually see here, I've tested all kinds of different ways of doing the same thing. Pattern matching is actually a tiny bit faster now than is null or empty. Okay? So my suggestion would be to use pattern matching or is null or empty. I probably will stick with is null or empty because I don't know what's going to happen with those other things. Is null or empty has worked perfectly for a very long time. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry. That's the difference we've done at 7 and 6. Now look between 6 and 8. Yeah, dramatic change, isn't it? So now you can almost say you can use just about anything except for is null or white space, right? But like I said, I'm going to stick with is null or empty because that's the way it's worked fine since the beginning. Okay? Comparing strings. So this is important, especially those of you who have programs that need to take care of multiple languages and locales, right? So a lot of people, including that company that was doing 50,000 transactions per second, was comparing strings like this, right? They had a lowercase string, and they had some other string, and they did it to lower and then compared it like that, okay? That does not work with multiple languages, okay? To lower does not work correctly, okay? What I recommend now, which is a little bit different than the last time I did this talk, is use to upper invariant, okay? This will take care of those globalization issues. And you're going to see here, it's not the fastest, but it's the safest. So you can see there, to lower invariant, to upper invariants, a little bit slower than to upper, to lower, but don't use to upper, to lower, okay? If you're using multiple languages, which you will someday, okay? And there's their metrics for the rest of it. Okay? String builder. Who uses string builder to concatenate strings? What? That's it? Ugh, okay, I'll change your mind. If you haven't used string builder before, which is like half of you, you create string builder, you go through a loop, you append things together, and then you spit it out into a string, right? A string builder will always be more performant than using plus equals or plus plus or whatever, okay? And you can see concat and join actually uses underneath the covers, it uses a string builder underneath the covers. But you can see the speed difference between plus and plus equals, right? Dramatic difference, right? Now, if we use a string builder, there's basically the same kind of things, and you can see string builder is 21 times faster than plus equals. So the half of you that are still doing that, that's what you're going to do Monday, right? Because 21 times faster, I think, is pretty awesome by doing just a little bit of extra code, okay? But wait, there's more. I don't know if you have advertisements like that here. So something newer for the string builder, there's an extension method that basically you can use string builder from an object pool. How many people have used object pools in .NET? 1, 2, 3. Okay. You're going to like this. So with an object pool, it basically pulls these objects together so they're not being created every single time you need it, right? So it's really easy to use. First, in a private field, you create an object pool by using create string builder pool. And then you get it from the pool, like that, and then you use it just like the string builder, right? And then when you're done, you put it back, okay? And then because I'm really worried about error, exceptions and things like that, I wrap it into try finally. If you take that off, it'll probably be a little bit faster. But I like to be safer than cause exceptions in the program. So now watch this. So append is 1.4 times faster than string builder. So that's not, a huge amount of difference, but it's still a lot better, okay? If you're really trying to get that last little bit of performance out of your strings. And because of the object pool, I've changed everywhere I use strings in my open source project called Spartan to use object pool. I don't use string builder in the traditional way anymore. So if you want to go check out my repository, you can see how I did that. Thread safety? In regards to?
Like if you take from several threads the same string builder, what will happen? It will not collapse? Or?
No. The get and the put back, it works perfectly, yeah. Because I test all this, being these methods that I test, I'll tell you what I use later, they're hit millions of times, and that's how I come up with these, benchmarks. So yeah, it's fine. Okay, regular expressions. How many people use regular expressions? How many people like regular expressions? Oh, come on. You're pulling my leg, right? So I know a lot of people don't like using regular expressions because they're kind of a pain to come up with, and they're a pain, right? And I have found, I'll give you a tip, it's in one of my articles I recently wrote, that ChatGPT is really good at doing regular expressions, a lot better than me. So there's your tip for the day. So anyway, normally you use regular expression, you create the regular expression with the pattern, then you do his match or whatever else you're doing, and that's the way that's been done forever in .NET, right? Speeding up regular expressions. So now, if you just move the declaration of that regular expression to a field, a private read-only field at the top of your class, and use it that way, watch the performance increase. Oh, wait. Is that the performance? Oh, yeah, see, I forget where I put multiple things. So there's 8 and 6 with the validating strings with contains. That's the normal way of doing regular expressions. And this is the newer way of doing regular expressions, where default, at least in this test, is 21 times faster doing regular expression and 0 allocations. And the other one has a lot of allocations. Okay? So, start using it that way. Don't use it the old way, but I have more coming up on that later. Great. Any questions real quick? The what? Compile? Compile's the slowest. Yes. According to my benchmark tests, it's the slowest, and that's why I don't talk about it. Yeah. Huh?
Maybe it's a good thing to mention that.
Yeah. I will next. I'll put it back next time. But the reason I took it out is because it skews the graph so bad that everything will be this big and the compile will be this big, right? So.
But is that because you're compiling it every time you're doing the forward?
No, it's only compiling once.
And then you're using it again.
Yeah. If you can show me how it works better, let me know. Yeah, I don't know either. Okay, so collections. We all use collections because that's how we use our data most of these days, especially coming from a database. And you can achieve a lot of really big performance gains by doing collections. And before I forget, the last contract I was on, when I started at the company, their goal was to have 40,000 concurrent users when I started, because they were about to launch this program in this application in India. And when I got there, they could only handle 100 concurrent users. Yeah, it doesn't work, does it? And so by the time I left 6 months later, I had them up to 7,000. And they still have a ways to go, but at least I was moving them along the way. And all these things is what I did for them, is what I'm about to show you. So generating a byte array. This is how I see most people creating a byte array, by using the random type and just doing next bytes and creating a byte array like that. Actually, my open source project did that until very, very recently, okay? Don't use that anymore. Use random number generator, okay? So create a random number generator in a field and then use get bytes just like you were before. But you're just moving it up to instead use the random number generator, okay? It's much, much more performant, as you can see. 8 times faster, and the allocations are just about identical, okay? So stop using random for generating byte arrays. Start using a random number generator, okay? Any versus, how many uses any to see if there's something in a collection? Okay. So they've added a new one called exists, and they both can take predicates like you see here. But look at the difference. Yep. So if you use exists now in .NET 8, at least, it's 4 times faster, okay? So those of you using any, cut it out and start using exists. And I've got more on that coming up in a second. Iterating through a collection. So forever in .NET, we've had these 4 ways of going through a collection, right? For, do, while, and for each, right? How many people use for or for each most of the time? Okay, you need a copy of my performance book because it's going to come up in a second, but every collection type and every type of type operates differently. You just can't just can't do a blanket for each everywhere because you can hurt your performance doing that. Okay. So anyway, this is for, and you can see here. Is that .NET 8 and 6? Yeah. So the last time I gave this talk, if I'm going through a collection of reference types of list, for each was the fastest. For years, that's what I've been telling you all to use is for each, right? Now you can see for is actually slightly faster, okay? So basically now do whatever you want. Because .NET 8 has sped it up so much. Is Mads here? I was hoping he was to be here. .NET 8 has sped up so much that those things don't really matter a ton anymore, okay? So go do whatever you want, but I'm probably going to still use for each. And 0 allocations, which is always good. So is LINQ really faster? How many people use LINQ to query their objects? Okay. So I did an any and basically reproduced it in a loop, and the loop was faster than any. Okay? So I guess my little note on this one is, you know, before you just start all going using LINQ, make sure the old way of doing it isn't faster. Okay? So test both and see which one is faster and use that. Okay? I know we're all lazy because we like LINQ, but so here's the tip about the different collection types. So every collection type, the performance is based on the collection type and the object type, okay? And like I said, if you get a copy of my book, it's all listed in there, okay? Whether you're using dictionary, array, list, I test every single collection type that comes in .NET. Okay. And the other tip is, I forgot what it is. Oh yeah, so far, the guy over there that was questioning me the other couple minutes ago, using any of the parallel stuff is slower. I have not been able to get the parallel code to work faster than using normal code, okay? Your results may vary and probably will, but I can't get it to go faster. It's actually a lot slower. All right, so we're back to validating items in collection again. A lot of people use count or any, and that one company I worked at that was doing 50,000 transactions per second, they were using any everywhere. Okay, every single time they were testing a collection, if there's something in it, they were just using any brackets. That's it, okay? So you can use count, you can use any, you can use long count, you can use try, get, non-enumerated count. So there's many different ways of doing the same thing in .NET now. So which one is faster? Count. Okay? So in this case, at least, for reference types, a list of reference types, count is slightly faster. Actually, it's about half the speed as any. And then long count is the slowest. Okay? So if you're using long count, I would recommend not to do that. And there's the allocations there. You can see the allocations for count is very, very small compared to the other ones. All right. Verifying array contents. So for arrays, don't use count. Okay? You should use length or something else I'll show you in a second. Okay? Count has typically been slower with arrays. Okay? So now if I test long length, count, any, and long length now is actually a little bit faster than length. Okay? Where that was swapped the last time I did this talk. Last time I did it, length was faster, and long length was actually, I think, after count. Okay? So now you can start using, I would use length or long length, okay, when you're doing arrays, okay? But only arrays, okay? The rest of the stuff is okay. It's just arrays operate a little bit differently. And zero allocations. All right, let's talk about LINQ. I've been using LINQ before it came out, and this is the way a lot of people still use LINQ by using the, LINQ by using the API. Okay, how many people do LINQ like this? Only one? Oh, two? Okay. So there's kind of the older way we've always done it, but now we can use lambdas, right? Basically the exact same thing. You can use a lambda, do first. So which LINQ call is faster, do you think? Do you think it's the API or the expression? Who chooses the API? Two? All of you using the API should be choosing it, right? It's actually lambda. Okay? And this was actually posed to me when I was doing a contract at Verizon, where some developer told somebody I was mentoring he had to change all the lambda expressions back to the API. And he came to me and goes, Dave, I don't want to change all that code. Is it really faster? Did a benchmark test? No. So tell whatever lead developer you have, he's not right. Yeah, at the end. Hold on a sec. So, finding items in the dictionary. How many people use dictionaries? Yep, a lot of people do. How many code dictionaries like that? Come on. Only some of you? I thought there'd be more. All right, so when you code a dictionary, if you're looking something up in a dictionary like this is the safe way of doing it, right? First, make sure it's there, and then get it, right? But you're doing a double lookup at this point. Okay, you're basically doing the same operation twice. Okay, so cut that out. Just use try get value. Okay, most of the time in .NET, when you see a try get value, it's going to be more performant. Okay, and it works the same way, really. If try get value, then update the value. Okay, but look at the speed difference. Try get value with ordinal is fastest, then try get value, and then the other two are slower. Okay? So if you can use ordinal, whether that's with a collection of even strings, ordinal can actually speed things up. Okay, but again, make sure you test that. All right, question? Mhm.
then it can perform better than using EF4 with Lambda. So, yeah, if you're just looping through stuff, it's one thing, but you also have to think about what you're using it for.
Right, yeah. You always have to think about what you're using it for and what kind of types you're using in that, right? So yeah, my blanket statement might not apply everywhere, right? That's why you need to test your code and see which way is better.
Regarding LINQ expression versus lambda, so all LINQ expressions will be turned into lambda expressions before execution.
The API does?
Yeah, that is the underlying cause why it will be always faster.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
See, I learned something today. All right.
Okay, that was it.
Yeah, thanks. All right. So source generators. How many have used source generators yet? Just a few? Hopefully I'll change your mind. Well, I'm going way too fast. You need to ask more questions. So I've been really pleased with the performance I've been seeing with source generators. I want to write my own. I haven't got around to it yet because it's not the easiest thing to do. But generally, at least everything I've been able to test, source generators can dramatically speed up your code. Okay? Sure.
So, you tested with string. What about the new read-only span char? Any tests with that?
Yes, I have.
And do you know if String Builder is going to be able to create a read-only span?
It's going to be do what?
Like right now, it seems a bit of waste. Like sometimes you use the String Builder, and then you have to you put toString into something which uses a read-only char. Why can't String Builder just create a read-only span of chars? Like, so they should have a.
You're asking me?
Well, I don't know. If I get enough momentum, maybe we can get it done, right?
Well, you know the architect of C# is here, right?
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, I'll talk to him later about that. Huh?
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yep, it does. It does. So .NET, I'm not going to, this is not a talk about source generators. .NET right now only ships with just a handful of source generators. There's a GitHub page out there somewhere that lists like almost every single one that somebody else has created too. So I'm only going to show you a few, but there's a lot more out there. You just got to Google it or Bing it or whatever you want, or write your own, right? So source generators basically work with attributes, and it looks at your code and then pre-gens the code for you, okay? And that's how you can get this really big performance increase. Sorry, it's hot up here. By using source generators. And source generators actually started in .NET 6, okay? And they keep adding them, you know, with every new version. They're adding more and more source generators. I hope they add more. I think there's a lot of room for Microsoft to add more, but so far there's not a ton in the framework itself. So JSON serialization, this is something that we do constantly, right? We're always changing things in and out of JSON, going across the wire, whatever you want to do. And this is a way, this is in my open source project. This is from my open source project. And this is how you can use source generators with just a single type up there at the top. So you can see person proper JSON serializer context. And then I have one down right below that for a collection of that same type, okay? Because they actually act a little bit differently, okay? So, and that's all you have to do. You just have to declare it in a a partial class, and that's it. That's all the code right there I wrote. And you use it almost exactly the same as the old way. You can see serialization is, exactly the same, but deserialization is a little bit different because we're using the context down there at the end as person proper. okay? And that's what, like I said, that's what you use for the collections. And now, look at the speed increase, right? Deserialize, a lot slower than the generator, and serialize is almost the same. So you're not getting a lot on serialization, but you are getting a lot on the deserialization. Make sense? Yep. So I would start using that now. It's a little more work to set this up, but as you can see, it really pays off. Was that over double the performance for deserialization? Hmm. Who logs in their code? Why isn't every hand up? So typically, this is the way we log, right? With the new iLogger interface in .NET. I'm really glad they added that. But how many people log like this now? Really? What else do you use? Nlog? Well, this is using Serilog or whatever underneath the covers. So this is the way most people log with iLogger, right? They just do logger, log error, give it the number, the exception, and the message, right? But we all want, I've worked at companies where, they basically told me we don't do a lot of logging because of the performance. And I go, well, then how do you fix stuff? Oh, sometimes I can never get it through people's heads. So this is how the logger source generator works. I'm saying it too many times. Logger message is the attribute. And then you basically do the same thing, except with the placeholder for the message. So you can see I have a public static partial void log error. It takes iLogger, it takes a message. That's it. Okay? And then I use it pretty much. This is from my open source project. I have a type in there called EasyLogger that uses the source generator underneath the covers, and you can do it like normal. Okay? But look. What's that? 11 times faster using a source generator? Gosh, I've said that word way too many times now. That's dramatically faster, don't you think? Yeah. So how many are going to start using that? Back at work? I hope so. Yeah, I wouldn't use the old way at all anymore. All right. Regex. Now we're back to regex, okay? Now there is a new source generator for regex, okay? And this is how I have it set up in my open source project, where I have the options up there in the field. I have the actual pattern up there as regex contains word. And then you just use an attribute just like that. Do regex contains word. That's it, okay? That's all you have to do is set up the regex source generator, okay? And the one thing I really like about the regex source generator, I don't remember who wrote it, it writes really good IntelliSense. And it tells you exactly how it's matching the patterns in it. I really like it. But what that does is that single attribute basically creates like a couple hundred lines of code. And that's what source generators do. They do all this stuff in advance. And look, contains word is 36 times faster than normal and 6 times faster than using the field. Okay? And looking for replace spaces is 2.4 times faster than normal and 2 times faster than the field. Okay? So if you are using regular expressions, I really, really, really recommend you start using this, okay? Again, it's a little more coding. Don't be afraid of coding, it's okay. But you can see the big performance increase you get from that. I like that one. All right. Any questions? You over there? No? No. That's okay. I'm kidding. Any other questions?
Yeah, how about in terms of data validation? What's the consequences of validating your HTTP requests using data annotations as compared to validating them in code or using a library? Your 50,000 transactions problem. Most of them start from HTTP.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know the differences off the top of my head, but me personally, I usually use code. I don't use the data what was it called?
Data annotation.
Data annotations. Yeah, I don't use those very much. I use code. Yep. And whenever you're validating data, it's going to slow things down a little bit, right? It's the nature of the beast. You can't really change that, you know. So don't validate any more than you need to, you know, and only validate what you really need to validate, right? But if you look at my open source project, I validate everything except for Booleans, basically, right? Because you know, we all know bad data in, bad data out, and once that bad data gets into the database, it's really, really hard to fix, right? And for many, many, many years, I have an architecture that I use where I put all that validation into one assembly, so it can be used throughout servers, clients, whatever, right? I put it in one place. And basically, so when I set up models, right, data models, right, I put all the data models in their own assembly, and that's the only thing in there, okay? Because that way, as long as you're using .NET everywhere, you can use that on the server, you can use it on the client, you can use it wherever you want, right? And because most people, when they do stuff like that, they put the models along with the data context. And I've never done that, because you're not separating it out enough. And you basically have to start rewriting your validation code everywhere, right? So, yeah, I keep everything separate. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm returning to one of the previous string builder. Have you done any measurements on interpolated strings?
Yes. So typically, interpolated strings, I'm trying to remember my benchmarks right now. So before I answer that, I don't really use interpolated strings, okay? Anybody guess why I don't like interpolated strings? Nobody? Does anybody have a program that works in 2 different spoken languages? Nobody? Come on. You're in Denmark. Nobody? Okay, so here's my rule on interpolated strings. I only use them for error messages. That's it. Okay, because you can't globalize those, right? Right now, at least last time I looked, you can't use them with resources, right? And anything I show to the user is in a resource. Anything, okay? Because that way it can be easily translated. And if you come to build stuff in Lithuania in a couple months, I'll show you exactly how to do that, okay? Because I'm doing a whole workshop on globalization, one of my favorite subjects. Well, it's not really my favorite, but I never see anybody do it right. Yeah. Any other questions?
Are there any downsides to the source generator? Because for something like log error or the regex, it seems like they might as well just include that into a compiler, right? If it's always better.
I have not found a downside to source generators yet. Yeah. I'm going to tell Mads to rename that because it's messing my mouth up. But no, I haven't seen any downsides. It makes your code, it creates more code, so a bigger deployment, but that's about it. Yeah. I don't see any downsides. Any other questions?
Yes, it was just a comment that you're using interpolated strings for the error messages, which is the one place you shouldn't use it for. in logs.
Huh?
In the
I
log-
shouldn't use interpolated strings for error messages?
Yeah, you shouldn't try doing you can read on it online as well. They're like half the performance on logging. You should be putting it in the parameters that you're passing, what you want the actual values to be. No, seriously, check
No,
it out,
no.
man. It will affect your performance even worse than the other stuff you've shown.
But hopefully you're not generating those error strings very much, right?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, man. If you want to talk at the log statistics, then have a look at interpolated strings. It's like one of the first things, like 101. Don't do it.
Maybe Microsoft should remove that then.
But you can't remove it because it's just passing the string
know.
as a message. But
I know, I'm teasing you.
They've allowed you to add parameters afterwards.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Stuff that you want passed.
I'll look into that. But yeah. Anything the user cares about should be in the resource. That's my golden rule.
I noticed that you use private static objects or fields like singletons. How does that do well for scalability?
The way I showed you, it's fine. Yeah, it won't make any difference because those variables aren't being changed, right? So for scalability, it'll work fine. Yep. Okay. Am I running low on battery? I forgot to bring my my converter, so I better hurry up. All right. Sorry, I had to listen to a little bit of metal. So nearly everything is sped up in .NET 8 except for that. So I'm showing you at the very end because I'm not super worried about this yet until they come out with the final release, because things change, between every release. This is all these benchmarks were done off the August SDK. Okay, so it'll change in the next one next month. Okay, but when I looked at it, those things are not performing as well as they used to be. Okay, so watch out for my blog site. Now, if those things hold true, I'll be writing blog posts about it. Okay, to warn you. All right, so the last thing is, unless you wrote a book on performance, it's really hard to remember a lot of this stuff. And, the last version of my book, I learned a lot just writing that version of it. I think it's the third version. But you might not remember all these things. I have a hard time most of the time remembering these things, and I'm sure a lot of your junior developers won't ever remember these things. So if you want these things to be uncovered when you build, put these settings in your editor config. Okay? The editor config that Visual Studio creates sucks. Sorry. My editor config, I think, is over 2,000 lines. The one that Visual Studio creates is like 50 lines or less. Okay? I've spent many hours trying to scour the web on all the settings you can put in your editor config, and they're in mine. So if you go to that URL right there, you can get the editor config that I use at every single project I work on. Okay? And I update that editor config every time I make a major update to my open source project, which is once a quarter. Okay? So if you get it now, make sure you check back in a quarter, because I'm always changing things. I change things not only because I find things, but I also change the settings based on what I see developers doing. If I see developers doing the same thing over and over again, I usually turn those to errors or warnings, not suggestions or messages. Okay? So make sure you get that. There's a section in my editor config that's all about performance. I don't know how many settings are in there, but every single one I could find. Okay? My last tip. Benchmark your code. How do you know if it's any faster if you're not benchmarking it? Okay? And I'm not talking about the speed of HTTP calls and things like that, of just the code itself. Okay? So I think I was telling Mads earlier that the benchmark test for my book takes over 3 days to run. There's tens of thousands of benchmarks that I use for my book, and it takes a really, really long time to run. But I religiously use benchmark.net. And for anything that you're concerned about performance, you should be using benchmark.net, okay? Because that's how you know if the code is really going as fast as it can be based on the types that you're using, okay? Because like I said, different types perform differently, okay? So make sure you benchmark. If you ever, like that guy, remember I told you a story a little bit ago about the LINQ API and the Lambdas, right? That's exactly what I did when he came to me. That night at home, I wrote the code and proved the lead developer wrong, okay? And I went back to the person I was mentoring, and I said, yeah, don't listen to him. Listen to me. All right. I want to promote my show. So I have a show twice monthly now that COVID is over. It's called Rockin' the Code World with .NET Dave. It's on Saturdays at 10 a.m. PST. I interview everybody at big wigs at Microsoft all the way down to you guys. Okay? Not that you're low or anything, but. I'm in season 3 right now. Season 2 finished with over 250,000 people watching the show. And season 4 starts on October 7th with Mads Torgersen, who's here, who did the community event last night, and he'll be on talking about all the cool stuff coming out in .NET 8. Okay? So I hope you join us. Mads is an awesome guy. I've known him for years now, and we even spent 2 days touring Delhi, India together. That was really fun. So I hope you go watch my show. It's all recorded it's simulcast on like 5 different platforms, so watch it wherever you want, but watch, okay? Because I tackle a lot of things that people either don't know about or just stuff I care about. Like the beginning of this month, I had someone on talking about mental health at work, something we all need. And then the week after that, I had somebody on talking about imposter syndrome, something that we all have, right? So I hope you watch those shows because I work really hard with my producer, and I love doing the show. I love talking to people on Saturdays because I have nothing better to do. No, I'm kidding. I have lots better to do. I live a mile from the beach, so. Here's some resources, my website, source generator. So I've dedicated myself to write really, really good documentation for the Microsoft source generators, which has really bad documentation, right? So every time Microsoft adds a new one, I'll be adding it there. I have another article called Reuse, Reuse, and More Reuse, something I practice and preach. And on that one, you know, one thing I've been preaching for a very, very long time is 90% of your code should not be in the application for many, many reasons. And talk to me later if you want to know those reasons. There's my open source project. There's a link to my show. I've only found 2 courses on Pluralsight wrapped around this that I like. One's done by Clean Code by Corey House, a great speaker if you get to see him live. And then someone who's been my friend since the 90s, Deborah Kurata, has a C# best practices. So check that out too. All right? With that, thanks, and see you next time.